Welcome everybody tonight coming here and on Zoom. Actually, this talk makes me almost more nervous and more sort of tingly and wondering what's going to happen than almost any other talk I've introed. The first art was body art, and the first body art was menstrual. That is the theory and the models that radical anthropology has worked with for over 30 or 40 years. And what's extraordinary is that what generated that menstrual art was a need for women to say no to any coercion, any exploitation, any male dominance. So this is a time of history where we really need to learn what our ancestors did and how they did it, with a lot of playful trickery involved. Actually, Trickery and the Origins of Art is the title of a book that I should have written already, but haven't yet. We, in Rag's work, what's extraordinary about that no is that what it did was open the gateway to floods of yes, extraordinary creativity, the first step into shared imaginaries and symbolic culture, and extraordinary creativity and generation of new worlds, of opening up worlds of ancestors, worlds of spirits, that when people painted their bodies, they were embodying them, they were getting in contact with them. So this was just the symbolic revolution, the human symbolic revolution. And now, today, with the archaeology, particularly, we can actually trace when were those menstrual rituals happening across the African continent. About 160,000 years ago, we find the traces of ochre North, South, and East Africa, and in the forests and rainforests where we know Homo sapiens were living long, deep time, they may have been using other sorts of materials and minerals, plant pigments, but it would have been red, red, red. So this has been enormously important for us at Radical Anthropology. But the speaker that I'm introducing tonight has really been involved in revivifying, replaying, regenerating this kind of culture with practice of creating body art that's menstrual art, or menstrual art that's body art, or varieties of flowering body art through many decades, and doing that with a coalition of neonaturists, which sounds exactly like the sort of female cosmetic coalitions that we talk about in the archaeology. To us, this practice is almost like an experimental archaeology, learning how to use that body paint for protest, but also for joyous celebratory feelings of love, of beauty. For Bushman cosmology, red is the color of joy and ceremony, always. And it's the most desired color, the color they always want to find. So I'm going to, I'm going to hand over very soon to our esteemed speaker, Christine Binney, tonight to tell us about her journey through. But I would like to say that Christine's practice has kind of led the theory. Radical anthropology has theory, but we've never neglected totally practice because, well, there's some evidence on screen here tonight that we took part in some of that practice. And we've kind of had these braided streams of meeting, parting, coming back together and through 3 or 4 decades almost, when Christine and her colleagues, some of them here tonight, who were doing this way back, Christine's going to tell us how long ago, it took a while before she bumped into radical anthropology in the form of Chris. And maybe Chris would just like to say a little bit about it.
Very, very brief. I feel as if I've known Christine forever, but in fact, I believe it was something like 1992 or 1993, and the images, I have two images I wanted to sort of describe. Hope it's all right, Christine. One is Claremont Road. So for those of you who know about these things, it's just one of the great moments in the anti-roads movement sort of history. But for those who don't know, it was what was it? The M on the road towards the M11. And it was
Link Road.
the Link Road, and it was like they were going to plough through a kind of old Victorian brick houses, Claremont Road being one of these lovely roads, actually, full of lovely trees. And the most extraordinary edifice of tree houses and planks and bridges and all sorts of stuff to prevent these bulldozers from bulldozing down this road where people were still living. And in the middle of Claremont Road, with all these tree houses and planks and bridges and a huge number of all of us anti-roads campaigners, was a kind of sacred spot, a sort of the holy centre of Claremont Road. And it was a red room. And inside the red room was none other than Christine Binney. And already that red room was a room of menstrual blood, the holiest form of blood. That's one image. And I must have known Christine a little bit before that to have known that she was there, and we would all sort of meet up at Claremont Road. But the other image I have, we always had a plan in that late part of the last millennium, planning the revolution. One of the ideas was to make sure we got back from the sun solar calendars to a proper lunar calendar. And of course, I had a feeling that Stonehenge, we proved this later on actually, Stonehenge was built during the Neolithic as a massive sort of machine for engineering this really precarious, difficult transition of moving from a hunter-gatherer style moon clock with the beginnings of agriculture, trying to make sure that everyone move over to a solar calendar without too much sense of treachery and perfidy. So that the idea was that the sun was really the moon in disguise and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, we managed it. Just before the millennium, we took over Stonehenge. And the idea was to sort of use this huge clock and get back from the solar calendar to the lunar calendar. And I just have this memory of Christine as we plowed. I mean, this was a kind of vengeance on the Wiltshire police for the Battle of the Beanfield and various others. The whole of Stonehenge was a prohibited zone for many years, and I had to claim my European religious right to the European Court of Human Rights as a Druid, and we won our case actually against the Wiltshire police. But anyway, Midsummer's Day, just before the millennium, and I just had this image of Christine sort of plowing through the crowd like a sort of ship. You know the ships have these brilliant-breasted females plowing through the waves. We plowed into Stonehenge and we took over Stonehenge, and I just remember our mestre. We were playing hedgehog, and we suddenly a silence. Look around ye, and this was the great chief druid. I mean, he was like a drunken king. He was always drunk, and we knew him very well. The complete silence in Stonehenge. It's amazing. How do you get like 40,000 people or so in the middle of Stonehenge, absolute silence? We managed it through the sort of break in the amber. Look around ye, says the king of the Druids. Look around, all ye tribes. Never. This is ours. Never let these stones are ours. Never let the bastards take them from you. And then the samba starts again. But anyway, I have a feeling that without Christine, that moment would have been a little bit less decisive, taking over Stonehenge. And anyway, that's two visions.
That's the sanitized version. Yeah. Hello, I'm Christine, and I've done a lecture. It's taken me ages, and actually, really, it's loads of photographs. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the ideas and things that have fed into the performances and things I've done as I go along. But yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a potter.
and there is a shop for later in case anyone wants to buy anything. And I'm a neonaturist, among other things. And after attending the RAG evening classes for many years, I even went and got a degree at UEL in anthropology. And I've also done educational and experimental archaeology in the kind of more traditional way, rather than what Camilla talked about, where we built houses in school grounds up sticks, and lots of children joined in and that type of thing. But this talk is mainly about my work as an artist and as part of the Neonaturists. And yeah, so where's my thingy? Oh yeah. This picture is to give you a bit of context of the times I'm going to start talking about in the late 70s. And that's what the Prime Minister looked like at that time. And that was the time then I moved to London and became a life model. And I hated my body. And one of the reasons, I don't know quite why hating my body made me think I'm going to be a life model. But when my friend who went to Ravensbourne said, oh, they need life models at the college, I thought I'm going to go and apply, and I became a life model. And it was something to do with not liking my body. And during that time, I met, I started meeting artists, and I met people to do things with. And there's another picture of what the Thatcher, and that's what ordinary people look like at the time. I typed ordinary people in the late 70s, and various pictures came up. Anyway, ordinary people look like that. I went off to Berlin, and I had been a punk, but when I went to Berlin, I met German punks, particularly one marvelous German punk called Christina. And she didn't cower in her bedroom. She didn't have a black room. She didn't sit there for ages putting her makeup on, make herself all white. She walked around the house in her stilettos and went sunbathing by the lakes. And she was often completely nude. And she was sort of swarthy and strong. And she was just in charge. And she was definitely an inspiration in my life. Anyway. Where are we going on to next? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I used to go, and so I'm telling you these things because they're the sort of background of where I think becoming a neonaturist came from. I lived in Camden. I had a lot of gay friends, and we used to go to the Black Cat and see drag shows. And there were these men on stage dressed up as women having a lovely time. And one day I thought, wait a minute, they have to pretend to be a woman to have a lovely time on stage. Why can't I just be a woman having a lovely time on stage, not even be pretending to be one? And then the Alternative Miss World was a pageant put on by somebody called Andrew Logan that's been going for many years. But the first time I went in for it, people made up all sorts of names themselves, like Misdemeanor and Miss, I don't know, all stupid names. But I went in as Miss Binney, as myself, and I dressed up as a woman, dressed up as a man, dressed up as a woman. So I went as a transvestite, and inspired by the transvestites, having a nice time. And yeah, the other thing I'll tell you a bit about where I say inspired me a bit later. Anyway, where are we?
Okay.
Yeah, this is this is ordinary people in the 70s. That's what Google said. And this is more ordinary people in the 70s. And I think my mum would have probably liked me to look a bit of a mixture between the two of those two different pictures. And then, but because I was hanging out with art students, the people I ended up hanging out with and living with looked like this. And this is a cutting from a newspaper because they were the Blitz kids. And they just only really thought about fashion and clothes and having their photograph taken, and they all went to this club called the Blitz. But above them, on the same page in the paper, was this in Sunday People, and there's me, and I'm wearing a sack.
Which one's you?
Yeah. That one, that's me, and that's my sister Jen, and that's Ian Webb, he's our friend. And it was an Easter performance, and so
That's in the Sunday People.
yeah, this was the sort of, among all those ordinary people, this is somehow or another how we ended up being. Yeah, and Ian Webb was an art student at St Martin's, and by then I'd started modelling at St Martin's, and he'd made a dress to be as part of his fashion show, and somebody spilt red wine on it, as you do, and the dress was kind of, it looked like a female body, and so he said, I'm not going to have time to make it, could I paint the dress onto you? So, oh, this was for Erica. There's me and Boy George. that's more people. And there's me, the first body paint I ever had, with Ian Webb's dress painted onto me. And I had to model that in the St Martin's fashion show. And so that meant I'd had some body painting done on me. And it was nice, but a bit lonely. And the option was, well, really, probably most people would have just washed it off, but the only place to wash it off was the freezing cold tiled toilets at St Martin's in the sink, and it just seemed a bit of a waste. So I went out that evening wearing my body paint, and that's me in a nightclub called Hell. That's my first, so I suppose my first two proper times in public, in the fashion show, but then in a nightclub. And that was Lee, and unfortunately he's dead. He died of AIDS. Quite a few people in these, as we go through. And anyway, it wasn't long after that that I met Wilma. And she's here. And it's her birthday. And Wilma's called Wilma because she used to wear these clothes that made her look like Wilma Flintstone. Yeah. And she used to wear these kind of big leather jerkins and mini skirts and things. And they were made by her uncle. And obviously, I really liked her, not only because of her clothes, but it all helped. And we became friends, and I became Wilma's life model very soon after that. And Wilma started painting me. And here's me in Wilma's studio. And then we started exploring out with the body paint, and there's me in the British Museum. And there's me in Soho. But it was all a bit lonely. But one day Wilma and I decided to go out together to a nightclub wearing these dresses that we made that were halter-necks. And we realised they looked better over one shoulder with one bosom showing than just like normal halter-necks. So we painted one bosom each yellow and went out. And it was just quite surprising how sort of shocked people were, really, because this is like, 1979 or something, and you'd have thought the 60s had happened and people would be used to it, but it's kind of like, oh my God! Anyway, and so it was partly because they were shocked, but it was also partly because it just seemed ridiculous that they were shocked. But we thought, oh, we're on to something here. And so we started, when I went to be Wilma's life model, we started painting each other all the time. So instead of Wilma doing these lovely life drawings, we ended up just cavorting. That's on St Martin's roof. And that's us with some heads that Wilma had made. And where am I? And then while we were doing this body painting, I then discovered that my sister had also simultaneously been doing body painting at Art College in Portsmouth. And that's a picture of her. And so then we all started doing it together. And we just formed this performance group, the Neonaturist. It all evolved. I won't tell you every single thing, otherwise we'll never get anywhere. But this is me, Wilma. That isn't my sister, that's Nico. When we did a performance by the Thames, we used to perform all over the place. That's us by the River Thames, but we used to perform in nightclubs and at festivals. And a lot of our performances were seasonal, so they would be about, like here, this is a New Year's Eve performance. I've got my tartan sash. And it wasn't only us, it was men too that joined in with performances. And I've got a list. We used to use a lot of props. I've got a list here. And sometimes we'd find them just on the way. Like we once found a long piece of orange silk. We once found some fox heads and fox skins that had been just chucked away. And they couldn't just be left in a skip, and we incorporated them in our performances and used them a few times until they got the moss and we had to go. But I've got a list: shrimps, sellotape, mashed potato, rubber wombs, freezer bags, £10 notes, biscuits, knives and forks, Calagas cooker, frying pan, Scotch pancakes, peanuts, vitamins, sheep's heart, bric-a-brac, dollies, fox furs, odd shoes, porridge. And this is at the Clarendon in Camden. And we'd write little plans for the performances, but we didn't rehearse them. And it wasn't really a show. It was more just doing stuff. So in a way, it was more like a ritual. But you know, we did sort of have entertainment in mind, but not very much. We were just getting up on the stage and using the energy of the stage and having an audience to, you know, have as part of creating the energy. This is us at the Fairy Fair, and that's the time we forgot the body paint. And so luckily we'd remembered the porridge. And so we went to the cocktail tent and borrowed some food colouring and just lodged coloured porridge on each other instead. Yeah, and we didn't really care much about the audience. It was a bit sort of like it or lump it. And well, we were punks at heart still, really. And a lot of, you know, most of our boyfriends and girlfriends got roped in. There's Grace and Perry, and we made him have an impressive bundle. And when I was a life model, I used to sit in art college libraries and often gravitate towards the anthropology section. And in fact, you know, probably usually only in my dressing gown. So I was almost nude when I discovered anthropology. But you know, I'd get books out and things, and we found out about weird things like men having impressive bundles on their willies. So we made Grayson have one, which quite liked it. Right, and then, and this is another photo from the same performance, I think, at the Fridge in about 1982. But right, little did we know it, but I'm going to read this out. little did we know it at the time, but when you add all this up and look at it in terms of rag theory, we had formed a female cosmetic coalition.
First.
And I Googled to make sure I got it right, because it's a lecture. I thought I'd better Google to see what I got. So I Googled it, and this is what it said. A female cosmetic coalition is a theoretical anthropological model developed by Chris Knight,
That's me.
Camilla Power, and Ian
Ian
Watts.
is on here.
It suggests the early use of cosmetics, particularly red ochre, by women in prehistoric societies enabled them to form social bonds and establish a sense of community, which is a crucial step in human evolution. It played a key role in the development of symbolic culture, ritual practices, and social cohesion among female groups, leading the emergence of complex human behaviours like art making and religion, otherwise known as the human revolution. Does anyone want to fill in any words that were missing from
Yeah,
that?
it's amazing. Is that like the AI overview?
Yeah, but there's
That's
words
AI.
missing. There's words missing.
Well, there's menstruation and sex drive.
Yeah, that's what. And
There's
what?
the moon.
The moon.
But what about menstrual blood?
Menstrual blood.
The ochre.
So they've said it without menstrual blood, the moon, sex strike. Anyway, thank
Well, if
you.
you go right
Thank you for
down,
helping.
go right down wiki, you go right into the wiki. It has all that, but it's
Yeah,
further down.
I probably wrote it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Anyway, to elaborate on how it was a female cosmetic coalition, we were a mixed group, but really it was me, Jen, and Wilma that were in charge. Definitely, no question about it.
Quite right.
Yeah, and people did what, we organised it, and people came along and joined in and gave us their bodies, which was great, but may have had the odd idea, but really it was all our ideas and we organised it.
It was very hierarchical then.
Yeah, very hierarchical.
Okay, well,
Correct.
That's how it is organised by.
But I think the act of painting each other was as important as the performances. I think the act of painting each other is what has enabled us to all still be friends today, really. And that's the bonding and the organising of it and getting everything together. And it's like the performance is the peak of a lot of other stuff that's gone on. And it was very regular. It was seasonal. It was ritualistic. So we had a rhythm. It didn't really. I don't think we were tracking our periods or anything at the time. And I can remember, I think, thinking, "Oh, will anyone see the string?" And thinking, "Well, actually, it probably doesn't matter if they do." So, that's from the Tampax or whatever I had. So what we were doing was very counter normality. But we developed various performances which we did again and again. And this one is called Sexist Crabs. And actually we did it. It was partly to do with Elaine Morgan's aquatic ape theory book, the Descent of Woman, which we loved. And so a lot of the ideas, well, they sort of came out of it, but we just loved that book. And but also it's because the gay men in our lives weren't, they weren't particularly PC, and a lot of they would call women tuna, and it really used to get on my nerves. And so I thought, if they're gonna call me tuna, I'm gonna go and do a performance in heaven and sellotape a crab to my fanny, and then you can call me whatever you want. So it was like getting back at these gay men that were insulting women. This performance we did at all over the place. Heaven, Oxford University, and we love turning into mermaids. We turned into mermaids there. That's kind of like, you know, if the aquatic ape had gone even further and stayed in the water, maybe. And there's us giving birth. That's me giving birth to sprats or something. And there's this, oh, I should put them in the other order. There's sprats ready to be born, and me combing my hair like a mouse. There's my sister with sprats in her fishnets. We love fishnets because of the because of the whole aquatic thing. But yeah, and we just liked a lot of the ideas out of it. And in the aquatic ape, it was about how that walking could possibly have been, well, was probably helped by walking in water, being able to walk on two legs adequately enough, and also hairlessness. And people are there's people are taught, some people hate the aquatic apes theory. Alice Roberts hates it. David Attenborough loves it. And Chris Stringer, who we like here, he says that he thinks that walking in water walking with the support of water is a good idea. So I think
It is a prevailing theory now, actually.
Is it? Isn't it? That's good. So has Alice Roberts changed her mind?
Yes, she has. She's
Really?
endorsed
I'm so old-fashioned.
She's endorsed a book about what she calls the real aquatic ape,
Oh,
which is by Clarence
good.
Finlayson.
Oh,
She's
lovely.
sort of changed her mind, but anyway, it's a long story. I could explain.
Yeah,
that.
brilliant. I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, oh yes. Oh yeah, more sexist crabs versions. That's Portland Bill Sculpture Park.
Crispin, can we speak towards the laptop if we can?
Oh yeah,
Just to make
people
sure
saying
the
they
sound-
can't hear.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
just to make it with.
That's Portland Bill Sculpture Park. And there's more crabs and postcards from Brighton. Oh, and this is I might have to go. I have to look over there. This is a cutting. We did used to get in the papers sometimes, and we performed with Michael Clark, who's a dancer, and the bit about the Neonaturist says he keeps rum company, to wit, a group of 4. They comprise one thin man naked but for his black briefs, and 3 fat women whose nakedness is hideously enhanced by the transparent tape in which they are partially encased, and which adds unbeautiful bulges to the abundant protuberances with which nature and time have endowed them. The Neonaturists they call themselves, and they are horrid. And if that doesn't endorse a female cosmetic coalition, what does? Anyway. There's even more. That was outside Centrepoint Fountain, well, in Centrepoint Fountain actually, and outside Centrepoint.
Is the dog being painted?
Yeah, the dog's painted as well.
The dog got washed.
Yeah, the dog has to join in. This was in a fashion show where we flambéed our brassieres. And this is the Neonaturist manifesto that was in the International Times in 1986. And it was all a bit of a joke, really. But, you know, it was nice to have our manifesto published. But around about that time, everything changed. Jen moved to the countryside. That's Jen. And had a baby. Wilma went to Mexico luckily she came back again. She's here. And I was left in London thinking, eek! But luckily, not long after, I found the radical anthropology class. And I'm going to tell you about my first evening at the radical anthropology class.
Sorry, which year was this?
I think it was probably 1987. Yeah, I haven't been keeping track for it. Yeah, 1987. And on the first evening, I went to the pub after the class, and having heard various people talking about the theory, I asked Chris Knight, what is this theory everyone is talking about? He said something like, 160,000 years ago in Africa, groups of women started getting together and painting their bodies with their menstrual blood and red ochre at the dark moon. This was to signal they were not available for sex until the men hunted some meat and brought it back to them. Then they would all be friends again at the full moon. This was the human revolution. Speech, music and art all started then. I couldn't believe my ears. It was like, I actually thought he'd already heard about the Neonaturist. Somehow knew I did body painting, was taking the piss. I did. I thought, well, honestly, he's just joking. And but then, you know, I think he managed to persuade me that evening it's the truth. But if not, I worked out quite soon that really was what he was talking about. And so obviously I became a very enthusiastic member of the class. Oh, and I carried on. Other friends came in and joined in with performances. Kath's here and Jill's here, and so some of the ideas from the class started seeping into my performances. And the first performance that I've got a record of, which must have been influenced by the class, was called Communion with Christine. And I haven't got one photograph from that performance, so I'm going to have to use this instead. And while I'm talking about that performance, I'm actually going to help evoke some of the tastes and smells of that performance by giving out some red wine. And we've got, you know, if you feel like sharing the cups, please do. And if you don't feel like you have to. But you know, because I'll. Yes, but have a sip on the way. Or, goddess or whatever. Go for it.
I'll show you a cup.
Yeah, share like a. Have a vicar cloth to take with you and wine. Anyway, so while that was going round, so as well, you know, I'm called Christine. Christine means Christ-like, and I realised that if I'm Christ-like, it means I bleed. Correct. And so this is Christ or Christine's possible symbolic blood going round. And the performance was about reclaiming menstrual symbolism from Christianity. What I did was I went to St James's Church, where they used to give interesting talks and stuff, and I'd spotted they had red cassocks, and I managed to borrow a red cassock from upstairs in the belfry or wherever it was and sneak it out. The performance was in the diorama. It was a marvellous art space, and every year they had a event called Sex and Sexuality. So this was part of the Sex and Sexuality week, and I created an altar with red wine, and I made a homemade bread goddess, and I stood in front of the altar with my cassock on, like a real vicar, and read the communion service to the congregation. And when it came to "This is my body, take, eat in remembrance of me," I broke the bread and fed it to the congregation. When it came to "This is my blood," I poured the red wine down the. I'll demonstrate. I got the bottle like I won't really do it. I got the bottle like this, and I stood with the chalice like that, and I let the wine pour all down my front, and I poured it onto my cunt. And then that was the communion wine, and I gave that out. So basically, I was reclaiming menstrual blood back from the church, and I was particularly keen to do that because in 1987 was the year that women were first ordained as deacons in the Church of England, and I was thinking about when women become vicars and priests, how would the symbolism play out in terms of what happened in communion services? And going back to me being dressed as a woman, dressed as a man, dressed as a woman, I was thinking, well, they're going to be the same because vicars are men wearing dresses. And that makes them shamanic because they've got a dress on. So if women become vicars, that means they're going to have to be women dressed as men, dressed as women. So actually, they might just as well leave out the middleman and give out the menstrual blood. So that's why. So my performance was, about reclaiming the symbolism for women and giving women vicars proper status. Anyway, yeah. And when I read back and realised that, this is what I read out while I was doing it. And when I realised that was the first performance that I did when I was inspired by the class, I have to say I was quite impressed, really. Suddenly I did that. But it was inspired by the women.
So that was the first performance inspired by the class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Finished? And then at that same time through the class, I found out about all sorts of interesting things like women's camps, Starhawk workshops, the House of the Goddess in Clapham where they did rituals. And so I started doing all sorts of different things and investigating different types of mythologies and women's stuff and ritual. And I didn't really have time to find pictures of any of those, which is a shame. But this is the next performance that I can see it's not exactly inspired by the class, but there's aspects from it. And it's exploring the Sleeping Beauty theme. And it was in a youth club in Milton Keynes. And it's playing with different strands from Wiccan ritual, Spider Woman story, tarantella dancing, and punk. And basically we did all sorts of things, including unpicking our jumpers as part of unspinning. And we managed to have a fire on stage, on purpose, because by going to these ritual workshops and things, I'd learned how to make a fire in a saucepan. And I don't think you get away with that today. There's more pictures for performance. And these are some backstage photos, and I'm putting those on because I feel like these are the sort of female cosmetic coalition photos, really. Because we're out there chatting, getting ready, deciding what we're going to paint on each other, and just bonding with each other. And yeah, it's kind of like a big part of where the sort of magic happens. Yeah. And I'll say that later. And mainly an important thing about neonaturism is we mainly paint each other. It's not about having somebody that does painting and then somebody getting painted. And that's an important thing, is painting each other. And once you've got your paint on, you do feel different. You do feel kind of protected. I mean, we're all about this. You can just walk through a nightclub with body paint on, and it's like seas.
Yeah.
They part.
That's what happens.
Yeah, they just go away. And I think
Especially when they're
partly,
wearing white.
yeah, particularly if they're wearing white, partly they don't want it on their clothes, but partly it's because it's just something happens. You suddenly feel more powerful when you've got body paint on. And it does, actually, the type we use has got lanolin in it, and it does keep you a little bit warmer. Not much, but when it first goes on, it's quite cold. But then you just sort of warm up, and it gives you something. Here's one with cat. This was Cupids and Amazons. We did this at the diorama as well. And this one was playing with the idea of Cupid's bow as a Valentine's performance and Amazon hunting and messing around with the hunting theory that I'd heard of and shooting. I think we chewed chocolates and spat them out and melted them in a cooker and bits of meat in them and shot them back into the audience or something, and people could eat them.
Dogs tried to get them off people's clothes. Like
Obviously, you weren't very good at shooting, but hopefully that was a good thing. This is French Revolution celebrations in Paris. That's what I've mentioned, it's Revolution. Me and Jen doing a little performance and to help celebrate. Oh, and this should have come before. That was the script for the Cupids and Amazons one, and that's some of the designs I suppose we were doing. Okay, now.
The greatest banner in all history.
And it's over there in real life. We formed, as well as the Neonaturists, then we had another group, it was the Camp Coven, and we used to meet and do rituals. And some of us worked at a place called Ericsson Demon. We were making jewellery, and we used to take all these jewels home with us and thread them up and get paid £10 a necklace or something. So we ended up with an awful lot of jewels at home and glue guns and stuff. And one day we just decided that it was more important they went on a banner. And actually Vicky didn't mind. So we made this banner. And it says, "Dear warmongers, if you want blood, have some of ours, love from the Camp Coven."
What was the occasion?
It was this was in 1990, and it was to protest against the Gulf War. Yeah, and we thought that deep down all war, this is obviously with a bit of brag theory to help, we thought that deep down all war was based on womb envy, an envy of menstrual blood by men. So this is what we wanted to say to them, because they don't need to kill each other. There's plenty of women with menstrual blood that they can have instead. Anyway.
Sorry, can you repeat the quote? Deep down?
What did I say?
War is menstruation envy.
There's more pictures of it. I have got some somewhere of the menstrual rags dangling on policemen's helmets, and I can't find them. I hope I didn't throw them away by mistake. And we took it out again in 2001, and here it is in the paper in the News of the World,
Hey, wow.
quite near the front, which is great.
Fantastic. But they didn't stop you. You said
No, they were much more weird that time.
Oh.
I think we tried to take it out a third time for something, and we thought if we take it out again, they're going to seize it. So, and I didn't know whether it was the word whether they worked out it said cunt, even though you can't see it very clearly, or whether whether it was they thought the blood was a health and safety risk, or what it was really. They didn't like. Oh yes. Hang on. Oh yeah, so then we come to this.
Spring of 1990.
Yeah. So here, this, and then that's kind of how we got to that picture that you saw at the beginning. And this really is a rag theory picture, and it was on May Day, 1990, and it's about red and green because it's about it's the red of menstrual blood, it's the red of Labour Day, and it's the green of Jack in the Green. And red and green are complementary colours. So we wove all the ideas together, and we did a menstrual synchrony dance where we linked armpits to share our pheromones, so we're more likely to have synchronized periods. We all wore red and black and white body paint, and we had animals and menstrual symbols painted on us. And I just learnt from Mary Lemley how to draw a labyrinth, so there were quite a few labyrinths represented. And the men were painted green, and we did send them off hunting in this performance. I think I might have a script somewhere. Yeah, the men did go hunting at some point. And then when they come back with some meat, and we cook it, the women cook it, and then we do country dancing around the men who are holding sticks with ribbons on, and then we tie them up somehow, and then we paint them red too. So we were definitely using the rag theory for that one. More pictures of our body paint. We sang I Am an Anarchist, like Kathleen Ferrier or someone, sort of like I am an anarchist, I am an antichrist. Don't know what I want, but I know how to get it. I want to destroy the passers-by, 'cause I wanna be anarchy.
It's the only way to be.
Yeah, so that's how we sang it, very nicely. What pictures? What pictures? There we are. This is another performance in Belgium with more red ochre in a futon shop, but the whole plan went wrong, and I can see this time I'm not going to talk about that much. And I'm just going to go through the pictures. This is as people have babies. We thought, well, why can't they join in with the performances? So they did come and join in with some of the performances. And obviously they got to an age where they didn't want to. They didn't have to. But I think they enjoyed it when they were that old. So this is a picture from the Alternative Miss World 1991. And we used to use patterns from ancient figurines as inspiration for body paint sometimes. This is a picture out of, what was it? It's from top 4 on Serbia, and it's from Maria Gimbutas' book, and it's in a chapter about bird goddess symbols. And I mainly look at the pictures in that book, really. This is Alston, Cumbria. There's Jill, where we went to do a ritual in a field, and it was so freezing. And we just got painted in the village hall and went to the disco. And we decided it was just too cold to do body painting in the field, so we decided to paint the earth instead with red ochre, and luckily we had loads of it. And we spent quite a lot of time walking around all the paths, sprinkling red ochre all over the place, and doing red ochre footprints, and playing with the goddess breads and dollies we've taken with us. Oh, there's another picture of my sister giving birth to some apples. I think it was at Halloween, and it's so we could do some apple bobbing. Oh, and I was also gone back to pottery then. This is a plate I made, sort of thinking about the communion idea. And it says, Bloody Mary, Holy Mary, Mother Mary, Bonnie Mary. So lots of different sorts of Marys you could get.
I was going to say that image is a rock engraving from the Pilbara region in Aboriginal Australia. So
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a combination of Australians and Scottish tartan.
Yeah. And it's a spirit figure.
What do you say
What do you say it is?
well, it's an image of
Menstruating
the
woman.
ancestral power. All the most powerful ancestral beings are sisters, females, in Australian mythology and religion.
Women's birth of the world.
That's right. That pretty much would capture it. Yeah, the simplicity of it all. It's an image of the cycle, of course. It's just so lovely that he put it in there. It's like sort of play pattern.
And I gave her some stars. This is a wax body print I did, which I then covered in red ochre. In an art house, not the one that Chris painted, another one. This is my sister and I in Latvia, painted in Latvian national costume when we went to Latvia in it wasn't that long after you could go. We went with Andrew Logan, who does the Alternativeness World. Where am I? Oh yeah, 92. And we were painted by 2 fashion students who were Latvian, and they knew the national costume, they knew all the symbols off by heart. This is the story of the universe in a belt, and they knew it off by heart. And as they painted us, they told us what it meant that they were painting on us. It was amazing. And here's my sister with 2 other lovely Latvian ladies. And there's a painting my sister did of it. This is St Patrick's Day performance, 1993, and it was about putting the snakes back into Ireland.
Yeah.
And we discovered this method where we could, if we put body painted ourselves, then put tights over our bodies, and then put coloured porridge over the top of the tights, we could then take the tights off, and it's like shedding our skins. And it's kind of like an anti-strip, because, you know, what we instinctively knew right from the start is you should never take your clothes off in front of anyone. You should just only ever appear naked, because it's the clothes that actually make the sort of make it sexual, and we weren't sexual. We were a female collective. I can't even say it anymore. We were the thing, you know. And And so this was like an anti-strip. So it's a way of, well, shedding our skins symbolically. So we had our snake skins and we gradually, revoltingly took them off and revealed our red leprechaun outfits underneath. Because apparently not long ago leprechauns did have red suits. It's only recently they've become green. And it's like maybe the red leprechauns are the snakes. And the snake is symbolic of menstrual synchrony, of course, everybody in the room who
Everybody
knew.
knows that. Yeah.
Everyone.
Ah,
Ah.
looking at the time. M11 Link Road, this was the tower where that was the last bit to remain standing. Just saying, my friend Anne Redmond invented the Let London Breathe slogan and made the banners, but she couldn't come. But in one of the outside one of the houses, there was a car that gradually evolved, and it just got dumped there. Somebody put a yellow line around it, someone put grass around it, so I added Rust in Peace in red ochre for the final bit. This is the room that Chris was talking about earlier, with red ochre all over the floor. And out the back, there was a toilet. And Jen and I had done a job where we had to do gold leafing in a nightclub, but we managed to come away with quite a lot of gold leaf. And so I've gold leafed a squatted toilet seat, and I also gold leafed some actual leaves. And on the door I put sheets of gold leaf, and I scratched into the gold leaf, open the door, open your bowels, open your cunt, open your urethra, open yourself to the stars, the night, the day, the earth, the sky, and remember anything is possible. Of course, that all got demolished. And that's me when I decided to do a bit of body painting on my own, but I didn't feel lonely. I mean, I have to say, it was so nice when Wilma joined in, you know, going back to the beginning. I forgot to say the big difference between getting painted on your own and getting painted with someone else is really, really different. And doing it as a group is a very, very important thing. But I did it on my own. I think it's because I was with the other protesters, I felt all right. But I was the red ochre sacred sow, and I was completely legal because I happened to have 4 pairs of plastic bosoms that become a sowie. And there's me.
Quite happy.
The pigs. There's the pigs. And there's another of shedding our skins performance. The Alternativist World. There's me at the Radical Anthropology field trip, and strangely, even though it's all about groups, there's no group photos from that. There's an individual picture of one of me, an individual of somebody in the room, Chris Knight, with his body paint on.
I deny everything.
Oh. So that's more experiential. And here is the when we managed to block the M41 motorway and dig holes in it while it was blocked. Me and Camilla were there looking like that. And we were very modest. We put modesty.
Well, yeah. I didn't put it on my tits though.
No, you
Put it
didn't.
on. I refused.
I did it like Soho. I just copied Soho. I put it in the same place as they do it. But that's probably about the most painful thing I've ever done. And I just in a performance, but just to say that even though performance art a lot of performance art seems to be about pain and seriousness and bloodletting, in the sort of piercings kind of way. In a way, the Neonaturists were just a reaction to that. We were the opposite. We didn't really do anything we didn't want to do. We didn't do bloodletting or grueling things or anything horrible. We just did, yeah, and that just the thought of taking that off is probably one of the worst things. Anyway, there's some more protesters and Camilla.
Yeah, really, I didn't recognise that. Very sexy woman.
And then that's Camilla's flat,
Yeah.
her books, and a little group of
Good
us
order.
actually just went to a Halloween party.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, Day of the Dead.
I was turning the zebra.
Yeah, oh were you? Yeah.
Right.
Then we became the Neonaturist Ladies Choir, and I go, and
That's where the pride flag came from.
pardon?
You look like a pride flag. That's the new, like, one of 100 versions.
And we did several performances of the Neonaturist Ladies Choir. It was lovely. We left the red ochre behind suddenly and gone for bright, but very matching. And it's the best effect is always when you're matching.
Mm-hmm. Not identical, but
Yeah. This is homage to homage to Mary Barnes, and it was at Kingsley Hall, and it's R.D. Lang was connected to Kingsley Hall, and it's where he worked with Mary Barnes, and where she came off of her antipsychosis medication, and where he supported her in just doing whatever she wanted to do and allowed her to go mad completely and to write on the walls in her shit, to write on the walls in her menstrual blood, and eventually she recovered. She didn't need her medication anymore, and I've written it down. It's because she worked through whatever it was and she expressed it, supported by the therapeutic community. So, you know, it's possible, and it's just that I think the world is so limited. We've just got to do art and express ourselves. Anyway, this is me and Jen back on the blooming old aquatic ape type of theme, sort of being mermaids on the beach at Berlin Gap. And I mean, after this, the performances did become quite infrequent. I mean, possibly one a year or not that often. But I started doing the Neonaturist archive and getting it all together, which was a long, grueling task. But while I was doing it, I did some of the photographs floated onto pots, and I started making pots that were kind of storage vessels for neonaturist documentation. There we are. In 2010, at the Hayward Gallery, we did the Neonaturist life drawing class. We didn't really know what it was going to be. We just said we'll do a life drawing class. And this is a photograph from that. So, and after the class, as we like to do, we all went down onto the beach of the River Thames, and that was lovely. This is the only photograph I could find of Miss Marina Psychopomp of the counterintuitive homeostasis. But there's another entry in the Eternity Miss World, and it was me and Jill. And I'm going to read this out. Using ideas about the dynamics of the large group to interact with and have conversations with the audience. And it was using the psychoanalytical framework of group systems theory. So we just, the globe is kind of in the round, and it's such a wonderful place to interact with the audience. And it really was sort of like we were having a conversation with the audience. And that's us being interviewed by Mr. Perry himself. If anyone wants to buy that, that's £250 you have to pay Getty Images, by the way. We had an exhibition in 2016 at Studio Voltaire that was all about the Neonaturists. We had our archive displayed in it and paintings by Jen and Wilma, and we spent a week getting painted and printing on the walls. So this is one day after we'd done some painting and printing. This is some prints we did on the walls. This is me and Wilma up the scaffolding. And we've been printing on higher up on the walls. And our body paint's getting well worn in there. And that's the room with the images on the walls as well as our stuff. This is from the 2018 Alternative Miss World. That was Psychedelic Peace. There's Jill looking very peaceful. There's Wilma, who can't see me. And that apparently is Paul taking one of Jill's, because I think we did the porridge thing again then, that time.
It seemed to work quite so well.
Didn't it work?
We took off
I
the
can't
porridge
remember
and
at
we
all.
were kind of naked.
Oh, you look all right. You've still got paint on.
Yeah, but it seemed to anyway.
Anyway, I think that was Paul helping Jill get her porridge off. That's us on the banks of the Thames again, in 2019 at the winter solstice, doing a Santa Lucia performance. And Santa Lucia performances are very traditional for the winter solstice in Sweden and various places, normally performed by maidens. But we performed this because Santa Lucia is also the patron saint of eyesight. So we painted eyes all over us, and we were all having problems with our glasses and at the time. So this was just, you know, moving the energy on to the people with glasses that need a bit of help. Another Alternative Miss World, William Blake themed. We were called Miss Golden Threadbare. That was 2022. And last but not least, in the presence of the bust of Sir Henry Tate himself, we did that was the last performance we did, and it was a lecture. And this is Wilma doing her bit of the lecture with giant painting behind. Jen doing her bit of the lecture. And this is us at the end saying hooray. And
Is this the Women in Revolt?
that was as part of Women in Revolt. And that's the end of that bit. And hopefully we've still got time to show you a quick film. And the film takes us back to about 1990, in the heyday of the menstrual blood revolution in my life. And it's I made it with Jill, but Jill is a filmmaker. I'm just a performance artist that messes around with things. And so, but the soundtrack is new. We made that last year.
Bring down the lights for the film and really
Never lose our way to the well of her memory and the power of her living flame. It will rise it will rise
I want to move
again.
on and cover another
We will
topic.
never.
And Michelle McCartney from Calder Valley has the question.
Mrs. Thatcher, as a first-time voter, I would like to know what you intend to do about the growing division between the North and the South.
Well, I think, if I might say so, that tends to be exaggerated. Well, one moment, I think it tends to be exaggerated because in the South too, where you had a baking factory that's closed down, where you had coal mines that's closed down, you too had areas also there of public. It's an extra choice. It must come up to certain standards. Must.
Gentleman up at the top in the corner there.
Isn't that really just saying that you're going to privatise most of the schools?
No, it isn't.
In essence,
The
you know, just hiding behind
No,
another
it
name.
isn't. It's saying to some parents who are very, very worried about some of the things their children are being taught and who just want their children to have a very good, sound education. Some of these are trapped in some of those extreme left-wing local authorities. That is wrong. They're saying, right, if you come out of that local education, you get the same amount of money per pupil as you would have got in the schools around there. They come to direct from public education.
It will rise again. We will never lose our way to the well.
So long as we are re-elected.
What were you going to say to the Prime Minister?
No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Thatcher. There's no way I can agree with that. I think perhaps most of the people here would say that is not true. After spending 7 weeks in our local hospital, the conditions, the nurses were golden themselves, but they were so understaffed, so pushed for beds, no wards to put beds in. They're not going to get the care and attention because they just haven't got the facilities.
Well, may I say to you that the day I walked into number 10, the amount spent on the National Health Service was under £8 billion. It is part of my pride now that we've got a strong economy, and the amount spent on it now.
No, the cost of that, and I must consider the cost.
Do without the Scotch and caviar.
It will rise again. We will never lose our way to the well of her memory and the power of her living flame. It will rise again. We will never lose our way to the well. Of her memory and the power of her living flame, it will rise again. I'm about to get them out the oven, Jill, and that means our kitchen scene will be complete.
Of her memory and the power of her living flame, it will rise, healing you. You are a circle, you are healing me. Unite us.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this deity at the end of the film, there's this figurine with the tongue sticking out.
Yeah.
Is that you in the film?
Yeah.
So it seems like you're mimicking it with your tongue sticking out,
Yeah.
right? What is that?
I can't remember.
No,
No, but it wasn't, was it? That, I mean, I think Carly. I was thinking Sheila looking, but
Carly.
yeah, I think it was Carly. Yeah, I think there's a few that are like that. But I was thinking, oh, what is that particular one?
Yeah. And what's Carly?
Carly is an Indian.
Kali.
Yeah.
Kali.
Okay.
Goddess of death.
Goddess of death
in Hindu.
Kali.
K-A-L-I.
Hindu goddess of death.
What does the tongue being out actually represent?
I feel like it's wildness.
It looks like
I suppose it's a
it
cunt.
looks like mouse and cunt are pretty much
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't there also a yoga pose, a yoga movement?
Yeah.
To help with your breathing.
Lion's breath. Well, that, in a way, that's all to do with the expression of doing the thing you shouldn't. You know, it's not making you pretty, sticking your tongue out.
It's about as
So
horrible as
maybe
it can possibly be.
doing
Yeah,
things
being
which
horrid.
don't
Yes,
make you
CC,
pretty are
being
good for
horrid.
you.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I think you succeeded in being utterly, extremely horrible.
Pardon?
You succeeded in being as horrible as it's possible to be.
Yeah.
Grotesque somehow, like it's a Bakhtinian
Grotesque.
celebration somehow of the like continuity of like the self in the world, like the porousness of the body, like their continuity, you know, like the immanence of the body and us, like sort of as instead of aspiration to transcendence where everything is closed off. It's
Yeah.
like, there's an openness, so whether it's your mouth or your conscience
Yeah.
or something else. You know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Eloise, did you want to?
Yeah. What does it correspond to, like the kind of, is it a rock, something that gives your cut or something?
Oh, the crystal.
Oh,
the quartz crystal.
No, it's the opposite, the coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Was it? What was it? Was
I thought it was a
I
tampon.
thought it was a tampon.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was a rock.
I gave.
Ah, it's a tampon.
Yeah.
It looked like a crystal. Yeah, it really
Oh,
looks like a
sorry.
That's a crystal.
No, I thought it was a tampax. One of the reasons that Jill is here, who made the film with me, and one of the reasons that yeah, come up here.
Come on, camera here for the Zoom.
One of the things that I found out about Jill quite early on, and I laughed, is that she kept a Lillette a month, a dried one, and she had them all in a little box by her bed.
I think more than one. I can keep the lot, the best ones. And I don't know
And I
why
thought that was
did it.
great, and that's one of the reasons I knew that I could do things like this.
Yeah. I think I just kept it because I thought it was a fascinating thing. Like, and as an artist, I just thought this is fantastic art material.
Yeah.
I just instinctively knew that.
I'm crying.
Yeah. And so yeah, we just had that rapport, didn't we, about the power of the menstrual blood.
Yeah.
And I loved talking to you about it. And all, and I was doing the sort of quite hardcore performance art where you did piercings.
Yeah.
So you were kind of helping me transform and rethink things, and together we kind of came.
Yeah,
with
I was
that.
trying to educate you to say you
Yeah.
don't have to be extreme with all those and do all that blood, whatever it was, and you can just have periods.
Yeah,
when it's
and I'm
art.
kind of primed anyway because I was collecting my
Yeah, you
menstrual.
knew anyway, really.
Yeah, it just and that was all part of exchanging ideas and that coalition feeling, probably, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah, and basically that film has hardly been shown. It came out of like the box of things, Super 8 films that I'd had since the 1980s because of the Women in Revolt project. And we said, oh, we've made that film about menstrual blood, let's have a look at it. So we digitised it and then we put the soundtrack on it. And it was almost like the second time it'd been shown was like last year.
But we had to pretend it was made in 1988. Otherwise, it wouldn't have got in Women in Revolt.
Yeah.
But it didn't get in Women in Revolt in the end. But it did get in a film show connected with Women in Revolt. But we had to bring it back a couple of years.
Then we had it at that wonderful occasion of the Dragon Lunar New Year, and it also was shown there the second time.
But I remember the whole thing about the Tampax coming out was to be about not penetrating, but the opposite.
Yeah.
The opposite,
of like emanating.
Kind of reversal.
Yeah, I emanated a Tampax.
Yeah.
Do you want it, Chris? And then
We have two questions on Zoom.
Just a
as well.
very,
two on Zoom. Let's do
just a very sort of minor point, but obviously coming from sort of theoretical anthropology, there is an argument which is that you have ritual and you have speech. I'm thinking of a guy called Roy Rappaport who talked about the obvious aspects of ritual, and he just made a point which I've always thought was quite important, is that we're always tempted to say, what if we're coming from outside, we're tempted, what does this mean, what does this mean, what does this mean, doing a ritual? And he sort of says, but actually, if you wanted to say what something means, you wouldn't do it in ritual, you'd do it in words. And the point is that the rituals just produce some kind of experience which, in different ways bonds people and also excludes people, of course. And the ritual is kind of something which creates the potential for speech, but and of course when you have words you sort of say what do they mean, and it's fairly obvious what they mean, but it's like he argued basically just this, it's that kind of a category error to wonder what it means. Yeah.
Same as art.
You just sort of experience it, and it's either difficult or easy and all sorts of things about it, but the ritual is designed to create a sort of emotional feeling of one sort or another. And kind of what it means, it's like something you can only say in dance, and if you could say it in words, you do that instead. But there are some things you can only do in dance or
Zoom
music
here.
or ritual.
What Chris is saying. Can you zoom here?
Zoom.
We can't hear on Zoom what Chris is saying. I'm sure it's very enlightened.
Oh, yes, yeah.
We can have Manchego down there.
Manchego has a question. He said, "Are we going to Zoom?" Okay. Manchego, feel free.
Okie doke. Thank you very much for that. And it always makes me happy, but it makes Camilla itch when anybody brings up Elaine Morgan. But my question is, when you were standing on the beach on the Thames, you're wearing black and white face makeup that is dead on Comanche war paint. Was that on purpose?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, Mike Death was around, wasn't he? He was doing a bit of.
He did your one.
Yeah.
So maybe it was.
Yeah. People just painted us, and so if they knew something about something like that, I might have been painted by somebody that was.
Jen painted me.
Yeah.
She had
Yeah.
wall paint.
So I don't think that there probably wasn't anything consciously connected with that, to be honest.
Well, maybe it's the archetype coming through. Thank you.
In ritual, it doesn't mean something outside of itself. It just is.
Shall we have Erica and then back to Zoom on Christine?
I have a sort of very specific question on a very broad thing. So the specific thing, the baking of the bread. so there's all this detail, there's a design. It's not just that this menstrual blood involves a specific form that's being created and baked. And everything is quite well, you know, the boobs, the arms, there's also kind of like there's no head. You don't form the head. This is just a very pedantic, so this is like an answer. Was that thought out, or is that
That's just what they're like. Those sort of like, it was meant to be sort of like the Venus of Willensdorf and all those.
You're copying a very specific ancient
or a
fertility
specific
statue thing
type,
found everywhere?
because there's lots of them, that type of thing. And that picture I showed, I think that maybe, does that quite come from there? There's the Venus of Willensdorf, and there's quite a few of these little figurines that have been found that you could carry in your hand, and they don't really have faces.
They don't have either heads or feet.
Or they may have slit eyes.
It's between
And
heaven and earth.
It could be between heaven and earth. It could be also going into some kind of trance, losing head. It could be that kind of experience.
And they sometimes have patterns all over their heads. So it's like nets and stuff on their heads. And so I was doing netty type of patterns with my knife all over, you know, to make nets.
Okay, that helps actually. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I tack on something
Yeah.
else? This so I've been speaking with Camilla about this conference that invites me to do events in Berlin sometimes, and they do a lot of I haven't fully synthesized this thought, but they do a lot of hanging people from hooks and a lot of this kind of bloodletting stuff and a lot of this art. And the fact that you said you were doing this and that was your trajectory, and it just makes me put all this together in a whole new way, that in a way, just for a while, wondered how do these worlds combine? How can we somehow bring something weird and feminist to Berlin? And I don't know, I'm still working on it. But one thing that definitely occurred to me as we were going is that I don't know exactly how the menstrual blood fits in yet with the hooks in there, but it does. And I also know that one thing I definitely want to do is this character that I'm developing. It's Marijuana de la Croix. Okay, it's like marijuana of the cross. It's like a crusading marijuana grower, pot dealer who's been displaced by legalization, and it's this kind of like effort at creating a revolutionary class of these displaced marijuana workers. That's a whole other project. Anyway, sidebar. But I want to do it naked, body painted. Marijuana de la Croix is like a gendered, like a very awkward subject already, like what I just said. It's an awkward subject position to try to speak from, okay? And it's not only like a subaltern in all those criminalized ways. It's also a woman, and it's awkward. And there's this whole. You just totally inspired me. I just wanted to.
Good.
Watching all those bodies. I was like, yeah, I want to do this lecture. Like a very fancy lecture. You saw me last week. I want to do something like that, like deadpan, but like, you know, on the front, like with a suit painted on. Business in the front and party in the back.
Oh, that'd be good.
And do a performance like, anyway, thank you.
Right. Have we got Zoom?
We have another question on Zoom, yeah. Christine, would you like to unmute yourself and make yourself visible?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi. That was, Christine, thank you. That's possibly the most astonishing body of artwork I have ever seen in my entire life. And I live in the art world. I mean, it's really, really astounding. And I have two questions. How much formal interaction have you had with the formal art world? Has anybody ever written about you in the art world? And do you perceive yourself in any way in the kind of official art world tradition? And has your work been in any way inspired by or riffing with, in conversation with, other performance artists, or is it mainly more, well, what is your position? Because I've never come across you in the art world ever.
Are you respectable?
Well, I am a woman, and so are Wilma and Jen and Jill. That's one of the reasons. But we were in the Women in Revolt exhibition that was in the Tate last year. But that, I mean, Lindsay Young, who curated it, spent years going around finding women that no one had ever heard of, and so we were kind of lucky to be in it, and so. I don't know if that means I'm in the proper art world or not really. And in fact, I don't even know. I don't think I know really what you're saying. I know what you mean, but I'm probably on the cusp, I think, sort of going between the worlds. But I don't really want to be in the art world properly either, because I think it's quite a sterile place sometimes. It's nice, life is good. So I think being on the cusp is quite good for me. But I mean, I think the neonaturists are gradually getting recognized. We kind of, people have started putting this as kind of on the edges of things and in things. And we did have an exhibition at Studio Voltaire that's quite a proper gallery in London, really, but it's a bit niche. But yeah. And what else did you say?
Oh, I asked it, had you ever kind of been influenced by any other performance artists?
My Anne Bean is an amazing performance artist, and she was my favorite artist for a long time. And they're probably, and as I was saying, I did the kind of performance artists, and I can't even remember any of their names, but even like there's an exhibition at the moment at the Tate about Lee Bowery, and in a way, he did lots of piercings and really extreme things, and giant dressing up, but in a way, I was kind of sort of being the opposite to him, because he was doing painful things, and it was all very big and like a show. And I feel like what we do is different. What the neonaturists do is more like, well, it's not just it's more like a experience and a ritual and a joyful thing to be part of, and it's also saying something, but maybe. And when I showed that picture of the Blitz Club, where very early on, and then I was doing a performance underneath, that was before body painting, but in a way, when I was doing that performance, and I think that it carried on with the body painting, is I felt like I was kind of creating a balance, because it just seemed to be such a one-tracked kind of world. It felt like it needed balancing out. So in a way, going nude, the kind of clubs where the only thing anyone thinks about is their clothes, could be seen as just doing it to be outrageous, or it could be seen as balancing the room, because it's like all these people hardly have got bodies, or they can only be in a certain way, and somebody just needs to see a different type of body. So it might, perhaps that's partly what I was doing. But I've been around artists, but no one's ever taken me very seriously. And I think, as particularly as an individual, and the neonaturists, they have up more these days. Some people. Did you say
Could
that?
I just make one more comment?
Mm.
Because I teach in art schools, and so many young women these days want to do performance art with their bodies, but they're incredibly ashamed of their bodies if they're not, looking like supermodels. And you should give classes in art schools to young women to how to not be ashamed of yourself. Really, you could have a whole career doing that. Thank you.
Well, the thing is, nobody taught me to. I just thought, I hate my body so much, I've just got to be a life model. I didn't have a class in it.
Can I say something, Matt?
Yeah.
me too, because I sort of felt like I hate my
Wilma's
body.
talking now. I just swivel you round.
But when you said that, I felt like, did we hate our bodies because we actually hated our bodies, or because we were made to hate our bodies?
Yeah.
By the predominance of airbrushed, what would be Photoshop now,
Hmm.
supermodels, and you saw them naked everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's why we thought, oh God, my body doesn't look like that.
Yeah,
you know.
that's
So
right.
It's taken a long time to go for a reason.
Yeah.
We're gonna. What is there any other? You, okay, I wanted to have a go. You've had one. And you've had one. Do you want to have one? You have one.
But yeah, do you want to go first?
Okay. Let's try and wrap up too. So.
That's values.
I thought Ronnie had.
I've had a
you
question.
had a question.
I could
That's
ask more
fine.
if you allow me to.
I will, but I think isn't it fair to let me have one go, even if I'm the chair, or am I supposed to show?
Camilla, just ask your question. Come on.
So yeah, goes that. So yeah, what some of the most important things you said were talking about how being able to body paint and being alone with, and that process of body painting together with others is almost it's almost the process that matters more than the actual display or performance. I strongly agree with, because I've also had experience of body paint on my own in demos, scenarios, and that is, yeah, that's quite sharp. But but I have a strong feeling of, you know, what it would be like to really be in coalitions which are taking in Paleolithic design and so forth, and really that's kind of almost a dream, a wet dream of mine. But the playful trickery that comes over, this low key, and in the film, this very low key, you're just going to the oven, you're doing these domestic tasks, it's menstruate, cookery, domestic, and then it kind of goes into this explosive vortex state, and I'm taken into the Bushman cosmology of like first creation, where you're going back into time before time, where nothing is fixed and people have eland heads, and it is the girl's power in her menstrual heart, which is like the rocket launch pad vortex. It's not a menstrual heart, it's a menstrual vortex that takes the entire community. And this is what's so extraordinary about the Neonaturists. They really are like transporting a community by being very rooted in that, with ordinariness, and yet flipping into the other world in a way that's quite magic. And that's just quite magic.
When we did performances and they said, "Oh, how do you want the lighting?" I would used to say, "Can we have it like a kitchen?" We bring it so it, and then we always brought our props on stage in carry bags and to bring in the ordinary.
Now, Lex and then Fabio, and then Annie, and then I was yeah, that's finished.
Yeah, just to say that was a really incredible talk, and it was so amazing to see all of it like together. And I also think your art is gonna inspire like generations to come and then to come. Like it's really like powerful works. With the menstrual video, I can't remember if you guys were synchronizing at that point.
Yeah,
so how did that happen? Did you just by chance, or did you try and plan it?
Well, I mean, I can't remember the details of it, but I think we were just very much, we knew we wanted to do this film together, and we were.
Or did we just think, oh, we've both got our periods, let's make a film?
I think it's probably a mixture,
No.
but we knew that us being synchronised somehow was the right thing.
Yeah, well,
it worked, so that's why I'm featured in it. You know, even though it's really Christine mainly, but it was just me and you, and we were in synchrony, and it all just seemed to happen.
But if we made it in 1990, when we really did, we had just done the menstrual synchrony dance, perhaps.
So it might have been, it could have been sort of filtering through.
I think it was probably summer. The amount of clothes we've got on.
Yeah.
I have a very quick question, just because I think you didn't mention it. Where did this name come from? How did you come to this name, Neonaturists?
Actually, it took us quite a long time to come up with that name. And first of all, we were the segments, because we found a piece of orange silk on the way to a performance. And it was a Carmen Miranda night. And so we turned ourselves into an orange and called ourselves the segments. But then, I don't know, I think it
You
just
rang
came.
me up one night.
Yeah.
And you just said the name. And I think it was something to do with people like Kerith and people talking about neo this and neo that.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, I've got a good name.
Yeah.
So I think it was because, you know, slightly sort of pretentious art studenty people talking about neo this
Yeah.
and
I did wonder immediately if it was a reference to naturiste, like in French, and a naturiste is a nudist.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Naturist,
It's here.
naturist
Yeah.
and nudist.
Okay, so naturist means nudist.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And so neo is like, you know, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I feel like could mean anything.
New nudists.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't in my lecture was there was a documentary made about us once by the British Naturist, sort of connected to the British Naturist Association, and they filmed us on a trip. You were there, weren't you?
Yeah,
Ellen?
with
That's
Stratford-on-Avon.
Yeah, the Stratford-on-Avon. They hired a canal boat for some reason. We all got painted on the canal boat, and then they put us up in a hotel, but then things went downhill from there. And what? I don't know.
Well, there was a big
We got
fuss
body
'cause
paint
the-
all over the sheets,
Yeah, probably.
and there was some kind of hoo-ha.
I denied at the time.
Yeah, and anyway, but basically, one of the reasons we're neo-naturists is because naturists are always trying to be natural and behave normally, like it's really ordinary to walk around with no clothes on. And so we were neo-naturists because we do art and show off.
There's Dottie online, but Alistair, you had your hand up first.
Okay.
You, and then we'll come to Dottie. Maybe that's enough.
Just a very quick point about the aquatic ape thing. Without that period, we wouldn't have had a descended larynx, and so language would not have been.
There are loads of things in that.
No, we don't think that. No, Alistair, we don't think that is true. No, you're wrong there. It's going to be kicked now. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. These are artists, they're not scientists.
No, I understand. No, sorry. Sorry. The other question I had, which was very much another man's question, which is the self-image threat or assault that you get from public images of female bodies. Is that something which you'll get that from very young, I'm guessing? But does it intensify when you reach puberty, or is it just a continuation of the same? Or does menstruation actually intensify those feelings of negativity or not?
Negativity.
Well,
I think it's the men that do that. Right?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. That's why I'm saying it's a men's question. I wanted to know whether that affects that. If you have a bad body image before then, does it change at that point, or does it not make much difference?
I think it's probably different for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's really
I think your body, because your body
cramped as well.
changes a lot as well, it's quite shocking in a way.
imagine
So, and then you're being criticised by men and women and
It's
magazines.
probably much harder for young girls now than it was for young girls a few decades ago.
What young women now, girls now, are confronted with social media and all that.
Feels much more bulimia and anorexia.
Dottie, can we come to Dottie last, maybe?
Yes, Dottie, feel welcome to unmute yourself.
Hi. I don't know if you yeah. So just thank you very much, both of you or all of you that are there that have come along for this, and it was really informative. And just love what you did and do and have done. But all of us here in Oxford, we're feeling a bit sad and despondent because so much of what you were saying we couldn't really hear very well. And but the way I always treat things is if things don't quite pan out the way you want, is to try and make a positive out of it. So would you ever consider coming to Oxford? I put on the chat thing, how about a May Day naked riot?
A naked riot. That's good for Oxford.
Did
It's what we need.
Did you tune in to that? Some of the photographs were taken in Oxford.
I didn't actually. No, I didn't hear that either.
Oh, some of the
But it'd be great to get like you were saying, you had a documentary made about you, and it'd be great to see that, and it'd be great to make a new one, or like just get some more archival recording of your thoughts and ideas about this, because it's such an amazing thing. I'm not going to completely. Raga's loved it, the bits that she could hear, yeah, it would be just really great to see you here, and we invite you as Oxford. We're inviting you to come and cavort naked or otherwise somewhere.
We'll go on the Mayday Road.
I thought you were going to pay me for a minute.
Oh God, I'll pay you in paint.
Right.
I'll give you 3 tins of paint.
3 tins.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be just it's very inspiring, and I do think it'd be great to like get that spirit back again, because I feel like that that whole just
really
giving society the not the V sign, but I just think showing that we can live a different way and like be a different way. I think that's just amazing. And I'm not going to completely bait out, but I'm with somebody who's done a lot of the performances or similar ideas independently here in Oxford, and I think she'd love to meet you.
Right. Well,
So,
thanks, Dottie. That's all fantastic idea for the future, near future.
invite everyone there. They've got to come.
Everybody wants to go and riot in Oxford on
May morning on the bridge,
exactly.
or painted in body paint.
Fantastic, fantastic idea. I'm really sorry about Zoom not being able to hear. Is that really so bad? We tried all we could to make sure.
Was that universal?
I'm gonna buy you a multi-directional microphone, Camilla.
Thank you very much.
Send you one.
You can recommend it to us, Dottie, without buying it for us, if you tell us what to get.
Okay, we'll do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Us here in California heard her fine.
Yeah,
we heard okay as well.
Yeah.
Audible in California, but not in
Yeah, people are messaging through saying they could hear
Yeah,
everything.
I think it was just one of them. But anyway, we will follow up your microphone recommendations, Dottie. I think we've really got to. So this was the most fantastic lecture for International Women's Week this week, and it was a very special occasion as far as I'm concerned for RAG. I mean, Christine Binney isn't famous in the art world. What does the art world think it is? I mean, really, actually, Jill, all the Mary, Wilma, Kath, everybody here. You're here, just you're doing it. Yeah, why don't you all come up and say hi?
The other Neonaturist was here.
Oh, I haven't even seen everybody. It's your birthday. Exactly. Birthday. Happy birthday.
Just to say, it's the moment that I met Christine in a corridor in St Martin's completely changed my life, and we have had some pretty fucking amazing adventures together. So thank you.
And we're still friends.
After all that time, after all that bonding,
we can still work together. It might be blooming annoying sometimes, but we can.
Well, I left for 30 years and came back again, so that's a tribute to, the
and so we
longevity of
can
the
do it.
It's also true for us, because I went away to Australia for like 13 years. Yeah.
And so, the bonding of the body painting, it's working.
A cosmetic foundation.
Come on then.
One last question then, very quick, because we're ending.
In Mexico, you're in Australia. How did you find the relationships in those countries to body art and?
I was actually sitting on a bus in the desert one day, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't relate, and it made me realise you have to do it in a particular environment. So we were walking around London naked, and that was fine. But I was alone, and I was not about to walk around Oaxaca City in body paint by myself. So I had a long, things happened. I did other. So you do realise that neonaturism has a place in time, as we wrote in our manifesto, and I think that place in time has come back for me. So that's where I joined again.
I think it does. So, I think we're going to say goodbye to everybody on Zoom. Goodbye to everybody. We'll give another thank you for our wonderful speakers. Next week, we are again going to be talking about women, body paint on women and jaguars, women transforming themselves into jaguars, the Piro people. And Chris is going to be talking about their rituals, which are real body paint rituals, and why perspectivism got it so wrong. And there'll be some rock art involved, won't there? Very much so. It's Chris doing his stuff next week, so please come back for more
Can I
women
make a
and
little
body paint.
announcement?
Yes.
We have got a little shop here.
Oh,
and
right,
in case
that's for the
anyone on
people in the-
Zoom feels a bit left out because they can't get to the shop, if they live in London or close by, I will be doing a stall on Saturday with Lex at the Vagina Museum sale in London in Bethnal Green, and I think if you could maybe we can put a link or something.
We got links. So-called Vagina Museum should
But
be
it's
the cunt
and you
museum.
can't really Google Vagina Museum because of the word.
No.
It's called something else, and I can't remember what it is.
Vagina Museum.
But
it is called that.
Oh,
but
maybe it's just
online.
Instagram. So maybe it's
Instagram.
Vagina Museum.
Yeah.
You find out about the sale.
If anybody can get on TikTok, you get a nice little lecture from Chris, Professor Chris Knight on TikTok about why vagina is a horribly patriarchal word, but cunt is not.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you.
Love y'all.
Goodbye. See you soon as well. Thank you very much.